Hi, Zelda. Nice to meet you. How are you doing today? Can I ask you a few questions? Yeah? Yeah? What is your favorite color?
Pink and purple.
Oh, okay. Between pink and purple, which one is your favorite?
Gold.
Okay. That's a very specific goal. And then... oh, okay. 好。
OK。Thank you, Amber, for coming back to that. Last time we did it virtually, but we chat a lot about manager versus IC. And recently we have a lot of the topics are around communication and soft skills. So I'm very fortunate to invite you back onto our channel and chat about what are some of the tips kind of like managing up both as manager and IC. You have experience both in IC and manager. How do you feel like communicating to upward management is different as an IC and manager?
First of all, thank you for having me back.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed our last discussion together. And this is a topic I'm truly passionate about.
Yeah.
So start off answering your first question. I think the management versus IC communication all start from a place where you're talking to a human.
Yeah.
And you need to understand what the other side wanted to listen, right? So your IC perspective, most of the time when I see IC talking about things, it's mostly relate with the work. And the manager, it's mostly relate with people. Sometimes they wanted to achieve the same goal, which is produce great work for the company, right?
Yeah.
They just have very different angle.
As a manager, you need to communicate downwards and upward at the same time. So what are some of the different methods or different contexts you usually communicate between different channels?
That's a really, really good question. And it comes from different perspective. So when you communicate up to your manager, you become one of your manager's IC. So what you focus on should be your own career growth and how do you help your manager to achieve their own goals. When I communicate upwards to management, I'll be like asking them questions like, hey, what is your goal for this year? How can I help? How can I contribute? And what are you thinking to grow my career and making sure you're setting me up for success? So these are the two topics I usually focus on and just trying to make sure I understand their expectation and how I meet the expectation and how they set me up for success. So when you talk to your people and then your focus is supporting them. So they care about what I cared about to my manager. So my communication style is trying to understand what is their strengths, where they see they are in the next, this year or in the future, and how I can support them to achieve their own goals. So the angle is slightly different, but it's all through clear communication.
Do you learn anything when you move from IC to manager? How do you adapt your communication style to the changes?
Oh my God, I learned so much, still learning. So especially in the earlier years when I transitioned from IC to management, and I had a period of time just not understanding, not getting it. Because you have to switch your mental set of, I need to get this done by myself, to I need to get this done by my team. And a lot of the things that you will have to let go, which is the control of doing to control of supporting, if that makes sense.
How to change that mindset to unblock your teammates, it's going to be very important.
Exactly.
What are some of the communication mistakes you have seen people are making as both IC and managers?
That can be very different and a long topic. I will start with the common mistake I notice manager make is one, very bossy, right? Like, I need you to do this, but not explaining why. So it's really important for manager to explain the reason why and then explain the expectation. That is actually some mistake I made recently is I'm working with this principal designer on a project.
Yeah.
And I just default at people will all do the standard process what principal designer do, right? It's like if you assign a person to a project, they will start just picking up things, working with people, and deliver. But I wasn't clear with my expectation. So my expectation was actually very specific. Like, I need you to work with this and that person and deliver some brainstorm to me or deliver some idea to me on this date. But I didn't communicate that. A common manager mistake is not communicating precisely, clearly, and helping your team understand why you're asking for that. And common IC mistake I notice is no communication.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, your manager gave you an assignment. You might not know, like, what is expectation, when everything is expected to be due, and what is my role. They just assume your manager tell you, and she or him might not have expectation on things. Then you just sit there and wait.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I think like self-driven is a very important quality, especially when you are in tech company, especially like startups. You don't expect always have a clear directions from your manager.
Yeah.
You're gonna do 1, 2, 3, and then following by 4, 5, 6. I feel like the manager expect the ICs to figure out by themselves too.
Yes, exactly. And that's a very common thing people do. And what sets people apart is this proactiveness. We all went through calibration. A lot of the time you see high performer have a very common traits of how they communicate, which is always communicating, always asking the question and asking the right question.
So how do you know what's the right question to ask? I think like that's a very hard things to learn as well, right?
Yes, it's truly hard. And it's a very big question as well. I would say my tip from my personal experience is don't be afraid to ask the wrong question. Because when you ask the wrong question, you'll get feedback.
Yeah.
It's better than not asking question at all. And then another tip is learn, right? There's a lot of online material nowadays. A lot of like even Instagram have lots of influencers just telling you like what is the right framework for you to communicate, how do you frame a good, great questions, and just practice and learn and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
I think like communication part of it is like understanding or align your expectation to your manager or leadership expectation. Right?
Yeah.
Is there any tips you can share how you effectively align or manage expectation from your leadership?
Again, like we all wanted to achieve that because that's the major piece for you to advance your career. The method I'm trying nowadays is one, looking at the whole company AOP. What is the whole company trying to achieve? And ask your VP, your manager's manager, what is the thing that they wanted to achieve 2025? And then ask your manager, hey, what is important to you? So the asking piece is really important. And then you have to put all their goals and things they wanted to achieve and look at them and understand them. Then helping them draw the connection in terms of what you think you can contribute to their goals. And then this openness of having that conversation and listening is really important as well. You show them you're proactively trying to understand their goals. And then you listen and analyzing what's truly important for them. And then you're not afraid to tell them what you think, how you can contribute, and not afraid to tell them what you want. Having that conversation can really help the early alignment. And then write things down, right? That's something Zillow is currently doing, is just having everyone write their personal goals and development goals. Writing things down can really help everyone be on the same page because you force them to read your goals
Yep.
and force them to comment on your goals, right? And then you have to come back and revisit. So open communication, listening skill, and just keep coming back to the same topic and refine is really important.
That's great advice. Sometimes it's very challenging to be authentic or
Yes.
be yourself, right? How do you find the balance? And also, what time have you pushed back to some of the expectation before?
It's an art when it comes to pushback. People are very different and sometimes they have a different perspective. So I think one tip I have is don't always think about you need to win. So you start from a place of understanding where they are pushback or their objection is coming from. So it's about like take a deep breath. If that's something you truly care about and people are saying no to it, so you have to control your emotion. Take a deep breath and then sit down with that person and saying, hey, like I hear you, and can you tell me a little bit more? Like what's the rationale behind that objection or behind that pushback? And then you acknowledge that you heard that person, and you also acknowledge who's the decision maker, right? You have to know if that person is the decision maker, ultimately it's their decision, right? What you can do is to show your view and your perspective, like saying, hey, if we don't do this, or if we change direction, these are the impact. These are the things it's going to impact you. So now if they're the decision maker, the angle is really about helping them see. Let them make the best decision based on the knowledge you share with them.
I agree with that. A lot of time, the decision maker, they still have the final say. Right?
Yeah.
So help them to make an informed decision, I
Yeah.
think, is kind of like your responsibility. And that's how you can push back.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And don't assume people are there to hurt you or people are there really trying to be the manager or be the boss. Like I have the final say. It's more about, hey, we care about the same thing. We wanted to do well, right? And just have open conversation around like, oh, what's the trade-off?
Yeah. I think some of the times what I feel like is like having the open conversation is also very challenging.
Yes.
Depends on the teams. People might not share out all their thoughts, or maybe there's some miscommunication, breaking telephones. I guess like in those scenarios, I don't know if you have encountered any of that. How do you kind of like fill up the gaps? How do you reach out to cross-functional team?
You have to acknowledge not everyone will tell you 100% what they're thinking, right? Like even you and your manager, you probably will not tell your manager 100% what you're thinking. So you have to first acknowledge that and then just think about what is the thing that you wanted to achieve first. So then you set a clear goal for yourself. And then if your goal is to understand like what went wrong with your report, right? That's something manager needs to do for their team. And my tip for that situation is to show up more often and do more public speaking. Create forum where people get together and you share, hey, this is my team's agenda. This is what you can reach out to the team. So they know what your team do. Secondly is building relationship, one-on-ones, like cross-functionally. If you have relationship with different cross-functional leader or your peers, they will tell you when you have one-on-one. So for example, we had a presentation like design audit and we thought everything went so well. Like people heard us and everything. And then when I had a one-on-one with one of the marketing manager and she just told me separately, hey, people don't like you calling everything landing, like marketing page. You should call it marketing landing page. So these are the things that you can get when you talk one-on-one.
Between teams, sometimes there's different conflicts. How do you resolve some of the conflicts between collaboration and communication?
I think first you have to think about what caused the conflict. A lot of the time, conflict really starting from not knowing who is responsible for what. So RACI is a really important exercise when you start doing, starting the project. Who is the ultimate decision maker?
Yep.
And who's responsible, who's in the supporting seat.
Yep.
If you're clear with who's doing what, who's responsible of what, a lot of the conflict can be resolved if people know, okay, this is my responsibility. This is not your responsibility. Another conflict could come from personal, right? Maybe people just not liking each other's communication style. And one thing that is super important for manager to do is helping each other bond. This might sound oversimplified, but when you see each other, when you doing some team bonding activity together, all of a sudden that person become more lovely than the person who always making comments in my design file. So two things is really helping the team see who is responsible for what should be their role. And then two is create opportunity for people to know each other outside the work.
Really like what you just mentioned is like show up. Even though I think during COVID, a lot of companies move into fully remote, I actually think showing up and having those small talks, having connection with your coworker is super important, especially as a designer. I think like our function is slightly different because as a designer, the best way to make a good design decision is to understand the business, to understand the product, to understand like a lot of touching point, and then you make the best design choices or design decision. I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I just want to have my dedicated time hands-on to do the design. Also, I think as a designer, how you can show up and join your team and be present is also very important.
Exactly, because we design for human. And then sometimes it's really important for designer to have their own craft time. And at the same time, it's also very important for designer to get other people's perspective. So they don't zoom in too much without thinking about their surroundings and getting feedback.
Another very interesting topic is how can you go to your manager and chat about career, chat about like how can I get a promotion? I think that's a very tough topic for a lot of people. In your career, how do you bring that up to a manager?
I have to be honest, I'm not a pro in this, but I always like to observe those people who get promotion fast. One observation is you have to dare to ask. Not everyone is comfortable of going to their manager saying, hey, I think I deserve a promotion, because that requires confidence and also requires courage to do that. Most overachiever or most people who get promoted fast are those communicators. Like they communicate, hey, I wanted to be promoted by the end of this year. So they give their manager a goal to work towards. And then they ask their manager, where do you see me as a gap to get that promotion? And what do I need to do to fill in those gaps? And then really be a little bit pushy and asking your manager to create a plan for you.
I like that framework. I like it a lot. I think ICs should definitely initiate those conversations. Managers not always care or think about your career in the first place. Just to be honest, sometimes I think it can be a luck situation. You will have managers who are truly super caring about getting you promoted, getting to build your promotion, versus sometimes you might run into managers who are more like work driven, their own goal driven. They will most likely skip the career conversation or never have that career conversation with you. And if you're shy, you never bring this up to the manager who are less caring about growing your career, you will not get promoted. That's just the truth. So you have to be proactive. You have to fight for your own career by showing up and mention it. What are one thing you feel like as an IC, it will be better to understand about management? And what about the other way as well? Maybe we can start from IC.
For IC, I think it's super important to understand you should make your manager to work for you. right? And how do you get your manager with different personality to work for you? But that should be their ultimate goal. So you have to start with understanding, open communication, like the whole session we're talking about, to learn what drives them, what motivates them, what's important to them. Once you understand that, then you can be like, okay, you care about this specific project. So I will do an excellent job to help you make that excellent project. So draw the connection is super important. Once you nail that piece, your manager will be like, that person is awesome. Let's promote that person.
What about the manager side? Like, what manager you think should understand ICs as well?
Kind of the other way around, right? You have to understand everyone can be good ICs. If you notice an IC is underperforming, maybe you're just not finding that spot for them. And then you have to be patient to understand like what motivates them, what drives them, and then work on that. Sometimes I see managers, even myself, jumping into conclusion like, oh, why am I not getting what I wanted from this person? And a lot of the time it could be like, they probably don't know why this is important to you, or they don't have the support to do a great job, or they just not interested in doing this. So manager have to be patient and trying to understand what drives your IC and then make an effort for it.
It's like aligning motivations, right? Like,
Yes,
so
exactly.
as an IC, you want to understand what motivates your manager. And if you can shine and have work better in those areas, that will give you better visibility, better rewards overall, right? And then as a manager, same thing, like to understand what motivates the ICs, you know, understand how to encourage them in the work.
Yeah, exactly. What's their weakness? What's their strength? Like if their weakness is truly important for you to fix to get the work done, then give them the support. If their strength is the one you needed, then just help them shine, right? Let them do their thing. Be the supportive manager.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for all the tips. I think a lot of the tips you share can definitely help our audience to understand how to move in your design career or in general, like in tech as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for Amber to joining our channel again. See you guys later. Bye.
Can I hear you? No? Okay. Should we stop interviewing?